Sadistic Penguin Studios presents It's Getting Drafty in Here.
Drafty old farm.
The show of drafting random nonsense.
I choose business ethics.
And now, coming to you from his basement, a.k.a. Draft Headquarters, your host and draft master, Magnificent Stan.
Hello, welcome to episode 14 of It's Getting Drafty in Here. I am your host, Magnificent Stan, otherwise known as Brian S. Today is Friday, March 31st, 2023, and tonight's topic with Wrestlemania Night 1 coming around the corner tomorrow. We're going to do another wrestling one tonight. Tonight is Best Wrestlemania Matches. With me tonight is the king of the Chicago White Sox billboards, our good buddy Bennett Karoll. How you doing, Bennett?
Doing well. How are you doing? Happy to be here.
Right on. I'm just trying not to die in the storm tonight because it's getting nasty out there.
You'll be fine. Listen, you're in a basement for a reason. It's to protect yourself.
There you go. I wish I had a battery backup on my house so that I can just keep recording while the craziness is happening. So if I disappear, people who are watching and listening right now, and then you too, just get the hell out of here if I disappear. But so Bennett, real quick, what is the origin of your fandom of professional wrestling? When did you start?
So I started probably I want to say 2000. It was either late 99, early 2000. It just kind of became a thing for my dad, my sister, and I to always watch together. We really only watch Raw. I mean, SmackDown was starting at that point, but it was really just a Raw thing. And that went probably until mid-02. I remember the draft. I remember WrestleMania 18. I remember some stuff after that. And then I aged out, quote unquote. It wasn't, it was the kind of period when everyone dropped off. And then like 05, 06, a couple friends at school started to get back into it. And with a couple blips and blops there, like since then, I've basically been watching nonstop ever since. Cool. I really only watch AEW and indie wrestling at this point, to be perfectly honest.
That's pretty much where I'm at too.
Yeah. I don't have any plans to watch WrestleMania. If there's something great, like I'll go back and watch it. Like I watched the Austin match last year which, spoiler alert, sorry if someone has it on their list. I don't, but like I watched that a couple days later. Like I'll find something good if I want to watch it, but generally I don't even watch WWE at this point.
Cool. Yeah, I think going back to like that real quick, the blips and blops, like I think that's most wrestling fans. If you've been a consistent fan over the years, you have those times when you're just like, I'm out, and you just walk out for a bit and you come back. I've been doing that for nearly 40 years now. But all right. So next guest we have for a second appearance. He was on our Christmas movie draft back in I was going to say January, but obviously we did it before Christmas, so it would have been December. Is our buddy Shankster. What's going on, man?
So much, man. Thanks for having me back.
No problem. Now, same question that I asked Bennett there. When did you start watching wrestling? What kind of prompted you to get into it?
What prompted me, I don't remember. It was, I was probably maybe 7. So it was right around first WrestleMania.
I don't. Yeah, you and I are about the same age, so yeah.
I don't remember watching it. Like the first thing that really sticks out that I can go back and say, yeah, I remember watching this happening was Saturday Night's Main Event with the Bundy Hogan angle where you got the Rock.
That's one of my earliest memories too. That's funny when Morocco held him in the corner.
Yeah. That's like my first real like memory of something that I can pinpoint. I know I watched I remember watching, like Sunday mornings was like All American Wrestling, or I would catch AWA sometimes.
I remember that too.
I remember you mentioned the Bockwinkel, or somebody did the Bockwinkel Hennig matches from that.
Those are phenomenal. Yeah.
Like a 60-minute, like it was New Year's Eve, like watch a 60-minute match.
Yep.
And I've forced my poor father to take us to like every show and like within an hour of us. He just, and love him for it. Didn't get it or didn't like it. I shouldn't say didn't get it. Didn't like it, but he would always take us. Me and my brothers. So, but yeah, that was the first one. I mean, I remember going around trying to, video store to video store, trying to find WrestleMania 2 when it came out on tape. And I think it was the first one I think I saw was either the big event from Toronto with Hogan Orndorff.
Yeah, or Hogan Orndorff. And yeah. I remember the production quality of the video was always freaking like the lighting was horrible of that show.
And the wrestling classic from the Allstate or Rosemont Horizon with the tournament match with
Dynamite Kid beating Nikolai Volkov in like 4 seconds. That shit always got me. But yeah, that's pretty much the same time frame as me. I mentioned it in the last episode, but I was like 3-4 years old. I started watching wrestling between like just before WrestleMania 2, same time. It's about the same time. First live show I went to saw Hogan and Kamala. And at Rosemont, I mean, it was so long ago. Chet Kopic was the ring announcer.
Those shows, I remember going to like the old, was it Wrestling Challenge, Wrestling Superstars, and see Kamala wrestle like 5 times in a night.
Yeah, it was so funny. And then they tried to keep kayfabe after that. You're like, you just did like 6 shows with like 9 angles. Like what?
Yeah. Like the same snake pit. I get a snake pit 4 weeks.
But God forbid Jim Duggan and fucking Iron Sheik get caught with some coke in the car.
In a car together.
They wrestled 17 times in front of 14,000 people last night. But God forbid.
Everybody keep the secret.
Keep the secret. Yeah. All right, so we're doing 3. There's gonna be 3 segments of the draft. The first 3 rounds are gonna be our favorite WrestleMania matches. So, and then after that we'll do worst match and worst show. And then I have another kind of wild card question for the 2 of you as well. That I think will be fun towards the end here. But let's go ahead and get started. Bennett won the coin flip or the random generator online thingy, and. And we got Bennett for the first pick. What do you got, buddy?
So especially when I have the first pick in something, you have to look at the different ways a pick can go and the different ways a draft can go.
I should point out real quick to our listeners, if anybody that doesn't know Bennett Karoll, he is a fantasy football just maniac. So I'm expecting him to overthink this.
Yeah. This is overthought
which is perfectly fine, and that's kind of what I crave, man.
Yeah. So here's the thing: I know with 2 old heads, and I don't mean to offend you guys, but you guys, especially for me, are both old heads. There's a very obvious match that I know one of the 2 of you want, and especially based on when you started, I assume it's going to be Shank taking it next. And please have it. It's okay. I have 2 different ways I want to go with this. There's either the best modern style match. I think it still probably holds up. I haven't watched it in a while, but it's last time I remembered it was pretty great. Or there's the best just everything. And so I thought about it and I decided I'm going to take with the first overall pick, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart in a submission match from WrestleMania 13. With special guest referee Ken Shamrock. Now, there is a misconception about this that I'll say. It's generally considered to be this unbelievable double turn. If you actually watch the shows building up to it, it's very clear Bret Hart's already a heel and Steve Austin's already a face.
Yeah.
They may have stamped it, but it had already happened.
And he's like bitching and moaning about losing the cage match and all that stuff. Yeah, they were setting him up to be a heel for sure.
So I know, Brian, me and you talked about this, and we were both at that show.
Yeah, we were both at WrestleMania 13.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And the one thing that kills me that I could never find since then is a pre-show when they did it was Austin up on the screen, and he said, get the line. He was like, Bret Hart always talks about getting screwed. He goes, well, I'm not bringing a condom to the ring, son. I'm like, it's just perfect. And I can't find it anywhere, but it was just like that. And I don't remember who's mentioned it last week on the show, but it was like, you know, the build up to that whole thing, though, starting back in September when he was trying to get Bret Hart to come back.
Yeah.
You know, and you put an S in front of Hitman. That's how
he was just poking and poking. And no,
Yeah,
and that style Austin, that heartless, but he still had a heart still. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
but
it was the heelish tendencies healed, but still you could tell he was a guy, like a real person.
Yeah.
A true 3-dimensional character.
It was the beginning of the whole, just turning the whole business on end, you know, at that point. The NWO started that a little bit, but yeah, he took it and ran.
It was like with that, it's just like an old, which you miss now, at least I do, the storytelling that was a build up for, you know, that one lasted almost 9 months up until July with Canadian Stampede. Yep. I mean, you know, almost a year long thing, and it was just, that's what was so great about it.
And that would have been Mania 14 main event right there, those two.
So that's the other thing 100%. I always talk about it also. People discuss that WrestleMania 14 was, you had the passing of the torch from Michaels to Austin. I always go back to this, and the title, it might have taken another year for the title, but this was the passing of the torch right here, and that whole build up through Stampede was, you're the guy. You're the draw, even if you don't, you know, and he still had a fully functional neck at this point, but even if you're not the guy putting on the 5-star matches every night, you're the guy that's bringing people in. And it was that handing off in this match that I think was really the passing of the torch.
Now, at one point during that match, they did walk by me. It didn't get on camera, unfortunately.
I was going to say, can I go find that?
But it was awesome. You know, let me think. How old was I? I was like 16, 17.
So that was what, 97, right?
Yeah. So 16.
So that was 19.
Like a sophomore in high school.
I was 3.
I remember when WrestleMania 13 tickets went on sale and nobody knew that he was even coming to Chicago. We were at a house show, and I think the main event was Undertaker Vader on that one, because that was the night I met Vader, who's the largest human being I've ever seen in my life, by the way. And at the intermission, they were like, "Oh, by the way," like, they're like, "Oh, and you should come back. We'll be back here in April. Oh, by the way, it's WrestleMania 13." Everybody went fucking bananas. And like, me and my buddy, like, we ran, like, we were knocking people. I was playing football at that time. I was knocking people over to get to the damn ticket booth.
I remember for mine, my brother, he's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
For Christmas, he got me this. The thing is, just said, "Hey, you're gonna get tickets to Sold Out in Cedar Rapids, NWO Sold Out, or WrestleMania." He made the right choice. So
Sold Out would have been fun though. Like, it's such a unique show. It's like black and white, and like they did such different shit with that. Like, was that when Jason Hervey, the asshole brother from the Wonder Years, was in charge of production?
It might have been. It was just because that was the all NWO one, I think.
Yeah, that was, they did the Miss NWO contest with like a bunch of moms.
Yeah.
And like the whole shtick was they were all ugly, but it didn't like work.
Real quick, back to Austin and Bret. This is a comment I popped up already, but the pop chant Ken Shamrock when he challenged him, I loved that, but also I loved just the look on Bret's face when he did that. He's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." He's like, turned around, walked away. Like, okay,
we did the pick and shit heel move. We're just back away from it.
Right.
It's important to remember also, we know Ken Shamrock now is a weird man, a crazy man. Like, if you go back and listen, Wrestling Observer is what it is, whatever. There was talk of like Ken Shamrock could be the crossover star of the 90s.
Absolutely.
Because he was one of the few like notable names from UFC, and like maybe and then he never got past, you know, kind of the upper mid, but still. Could you imagine how he would have come off if they'd have booked him like Brock Lesnar and put him with a guy like Paul Heyman? That would have been $1 billion move. He got started to death about 20 years before Dolph Ziggler could ever complain about it.
And he couldn't talk at all. He was just he's a dummy. Like, he was, you know, he was great. He was great in the ring.
the guy who still discusses how it was actually safe that he got hit in the forehead with the chair shot because it was the hardest bone. Yeah, I wonder why.
That's just sickening watching that again, man.
Yeah,
and hearing that. But with that, Bret, that set up for me and I'm not a Bret Hart fan, but that time from WrestleMania 13 till he left was the best part of his career in WWE. I think that heel, just everything he did in that 7 months was great.
Yeah, if he'd have stayed, they'd have gone way higher, way quicker, and I don't know if they ever would have dropped off ever.
So 2 things on that, which is wild. First of all, the contract that they let him out of, do you know what year it would have expired? This is a weird thought.
Like right now, right?
Like 2014.
Yeah, it was a
20-year deal.
It was 20 years, 20 million, right?
Yeah. But so the other thing, I've thought about this because I listen to the Attitude Era podcast as well, which I highly recommend if you don't. It's really good. It's some good analysis, some like fair and contextual and current analysis from it. Yeah. I actually really don't know how Bret Hart would have fit in WWF in 1998 and 99. And it's not his fault. It's just a completely different landscape.
They would have had to do something. I mean, he would have had to make
the whole company would have been different. And it's not in a bad way.
Right.
It just would have been different. And I don't know how it would have looked.
Well, I think we're going to talk a little more about Bret as we go along here because I'm guessing there's going to be more Bret matches coming up here.
At least I'll have at least one.
I have a couple that I'd like
if no one else does.
Yeah, I have a couple on my list. So let's go number 2, Shankster. What do you got, Bill?
Well, that was my 1-1 there. It was kind of a toss. I figured one of these 2 would go first, so I'm going WrestleMania 10, HBK and Razor ladder match.
That was high on my list too.
Yeah.
So I hadn't watched it in a while, and just recently for this went back and watched it, and just both those guys. And you never really saw like that from Scott Hall, I think, or Razor. I mean, it was never bad, but that was just above and beyond, and just peak Shawn Michaels.
That was peak Razor too. That was absolute peak Scott Hall right there, because that's right before the alcohol took over.
Yeah, and it was just I mean, like I said, it set the tone for ladder matches going forward. But that's still, and I know that Bret claims he started this whole thing, but I mean, those 2 were the perfect 2 guys at the time to do it. I mean, it was never. I mean, I think some of them get watered down a little bit, but there was never those, it was just perfect. To me, it was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And just the implementation of the ladder match. I know they used it in, I believe it started in Stampede, right? Wasn't Bret Hart? Wasn't Bret Hart one of the guys that kind of
Bret and Shawn did the first one in WWF, I think like a year earlier.
Well, wasn't it like Bret and Dynamite and Stampede, or it was Bret and someone?
They didn't. Yeah, and then Bret brought it to
Dynamite,
and they were doing it at house shows.
Yeah.
Oh, Dynamite Kid, so good. And then they had a second one later on, and that one was just as good. I think. Sorry, I think that also that's an important and that was one of the reasons I was going back and forth. Is there's an element of when a match innovates, even if it doesn't hold up, and this does hold up. I'm talking about a different match. Like when it innovates, it does get bonus points even today, even if it's not at the quality of a modern match. And this still is. I agree. I've rewatched it. I think this kind of modernized the business almost, like the implementation of something like whoever thought of using a ladder in a match. Like they've been using just chairs and ring bells for years. Like.
To me, there's been, I think, maybe some better matches, like ladder matches, but I don't think there's been a better one-on-one ladder match.
I would agree with that. And I think what's impressive is they didn't just go, which a lot of today is just like, oh, but what if he did the move off the ladder? They found 14 different ways to use a ladder.
Yeah. It was just, like I said, it was just so innovative at the time. And it was just like nothing that Lisa had never seen at that point. And like you said, it was just, you never think of Scott Hall as a great technical wrestler. And that just was a great match that he kept up with HBK step for step.
Well, you know, and if you, I don't know if you ever watched any of the Scott Hall stuff in AWA, but he was so like roided out and he didn't really have the flexibility. That's kind of what he changed when he moved to the WWE. He was still a big dude. I mean, he was always a big dude, but
he was way bigger in AWA though.
He was longer, yeah. And he, you know, I think he realized like, hey, I can't keep going at this. I mean, the pictures of Scott Hall with the mustache and the perm, dude.
Yeah. Dude, great.
Shit's phenomenal. But all right, cool. So yeah, you guys gave me the layup here, huh? I mean, I gotta go. This is I mean, guys, this is literally my favorite wrestling match of all time. I've watched it 1,000 times. I would pop that WrestleMania 3 tape in probably once a week.
Damn it.
For my entire childhood.
That was my other pick.
It was a match that showed everyone that, hey, two guys can put on a match like that on the biggest stage of them all and keep the fans enthralled. Because that was the problem. They didn't think that two guys like Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage could go like that and keep the crowd in, you know. And credit to Randy Savage for this match, and credit to Randy Savage for a lot of good Mania matches. He was a psychopath. He was a damn lunatic when it came to mapping out matches, and he was a fucking genius.
Didn't he have this all written out like
every match he's ever had?
It's why he and DDP got along so well. They were the two people who did that.
The only wrestler he didn't do that to was Andre the Giant, because he was scared fucking shitless of Andre the Giant. He thought Andre hated him and wanted to kill him. So he, like, you know, and Andre used to just tell him, whatever you want to do, boss, whatever you want to do it. And Savage would be like, hey, I don't know, man. You know, like, I'm fucked up. I can't. Don't fucking kill me, you know. I'm the cream of the crop. But yeah, the build up to this match. The build up to the match when he ran the axe handle off of his throat, off of the rail, and then used the bell, and like, just, it was a good build up. I was always really disappointed in the aftermath of that match, because I thought they would end up having another one where they were both face. But
there was like a Survivor Series match a year or two later where they were on the same team, and even then, I remember that was weird.
It was weird, but it was also Steamboat. Steamboat was a heavy hitter that went around. He was one of those guys that didn't get locked down for a long time.
He wanted to take some time off for his kid being born, and Vince was like, all right. I made him drop the belt.
Right,
great. You're back to the bottom of the card. Yeah.
Let's give the belt to Honky Tonk Man, which was fine. He was a good heel champion. I mean, he gets a lot of. He's a dickhead, but he gets a lot of shit for. He was a great heel.
I would say I think Honky Tonk's probably the peak of chicken shit heels. The farthest it can go. So this, obviously, this was the other match I was referencing as possibly the first one. Again, you want to talk about innovative. This is the modern match plotted out 25 years early. I will say, if you watch regular wrestling for like any period of time and then watch this, it doesn't feel like anything special, because you need the context of there wasn't a false finish in 1987 or 8, whatever year it was.
Well, and they had so many in that.
That's the whole thing. People were freaking out and the crowd was so crazy because you didn't get a 2 count. It was if you went down for a pin, that was it.
When you think WrestleMania 3, this is the first thing most wrestling fans, like most people, pivot to. Like most like casuals will pivot to Andre and Hogan, but this was the match. Like this match was WrestleMania 3.
I think Bundy squashing Little Beaver. No,
I was more of a Lord Littlebrook fan.
Little Tokyo, solid team. No, with this, like, I remember, like we were saying, with the build up to it, with the axe handle on the guardrail and the bell to the throat.
Yeah.
And
then George Steele being involved, and
my brother's watching this, so I know he just put the name. But he would get mad if I didn't mention showing Ricky Steamboat at speech therapy, not being able to get out the words, and then giving the so yeah, I had to bring that up because I knew my brother was watching, so I knew he'd be mad if I didn't bring that up.
Okay, so yeah, that's like literally that's my and Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage. I think that match is anybody that's in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, probably early 40s, that is in the business. This is why they're in the business. This is why Chris Jericho is in the business. This is why Kenny Omega is in the business. This is why, like, a lot, AJ Styles, these guys that have work rate, crazy ass cardio. And that's another thing. There were probably 3 people in the world that could go for as long and as fast as these guys could go in the ring. And it was these two and Ric Flair at that point.
And I remember, this going to watch this on closed circuit up in Rockford on the big screen, with a sold out Metro Center, and people just going nuts when Steamboat won. Got there live. You're watching it on TV and you're going nuts like you just saw it happen in front of you.
Sam's making fun of my phrasing. Yeah, I know. Oh, and I used the term kayfabe earlier, and I can't remember who told. I think it was Baloney asked me to explain what kayfabe is. It's treating your life outside of the ring as if you're still inside the ring. Like that's
I use the term in universe. Kayfabe means in universe.
You're there. They were forced to stay in character all the time.
The Undertaker.
Like for example, if a couple of the wrestlers went to a bar and one of the guys got into a fight, if he lost that fight, he wouldn't have a fucking job anymore.
Yeah, or I'll say the example you were saying specifically, a face and a heel could not ride together to the next town in case they got pulled over, in case they saw anyone. You couldn't see Hacksaw and the Iron Sheik together because it was supposed to be America and Iran is massive enemies.
Right.
See Jim Cornette for kayfabe.
All right, so round 2. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna pick something recent, actually, not recent. Well, somewhat recent. I love when they do something script wise that isn't what you expect. When Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar had their first WrestleMania match, you were expecting one of them to come on top. Neither of them ended up winning. Seth Rollins won. So I'm going WrestleMania 31, Roman, Brock, Seth.
Nice of the century.
It was a great match. It was very hard hitting. Those guys killed each other for a good 20, 30 minutes. And then Seth came down with the briefcase and pinned him and took it. And it was something that they hadn't done before. And you credit, like you talk about, everybody talks about Vince McMahon being so I don't know, creatively stunted and inept, but this was a stroke of brilliance. I think Brock didn't want to carry the company for a while, and I don't think they thought Roman was ready, so they gave it to Seth. And it was the right move. He was a phenomenal heel champion for a while. And yeah, I remember watching. That was one of the first ones I watched when I really got back into it. And my wife went crazy while we were watching that because she loves Seth Rollins. And just a fun end to the show that you're just not expecting,
No, I was watching that one again recently, and another good one. I mean, just like you said, the surprise of it, because it hadn't been done at WrestleMania before. You'd seen them do it on Raw or on a one-off pay-per-view. Like it was Edge did it,
right?
To see it come out there and do that and actually cash in when you weren't expecting it. That's what made it cool. Like you said, weren't expecting Seth Rollins to come out and win that.
And one other thing I'll say, and this again, it's painted by history. The fact that it still hasn't happened again where guys come out mid-match. It's always after a match, or I think RVD called his shot or whatever. It's never happened again where it's been in the match. And that's so special. And when I think, again, going back to what you said, Brian, about Vince, the thing people forget is this was decided like 2 p.m. day of that this was going to happen. That's why like Roman's dad and all of the Anawais were sitting in the front row being like, this is it. This is the moment. And they pulled it out from under them and they were all pissed. But yeah, this is one. This is I think it was my senior year of college, and so it was like right at the end of school. And I remember running down the hall to my friend who like was like, "Yeah, wrestling's kind of cool, but I don't watch it." And I'm like, "You won't believe it! It was crazy. They did this," and I'm like I was like 7 years old again. Because also, yeah, like obviously,
but that's what wrestling does, is it brings you back. Like that's,
I mean, when you do something surprising like that, you become a kid again, and it absolutely had that moment.
It's like you said. I remember like watching that stuff afterwards. When Rollins pinned Roman, you can just hear him like, "Thank you very much," or he says something like that to him, and it got picked up on the mic. So it's kind of cool that he did that too. But no, Rollins is just so good. I actually saw him wrestle here where I live. And he was there was a promotion out of Chicago that was out here, and I can't even think of God. But he wrestled out here in front of like 50 people back in 2006 at like the Latin American club. Then I saw him wrestle. That he's like wrestling in front of 65,000 now.
Well, that's what happens when you hustle, man.
Yeah.
But all right, let's go round 2, pick 2.
Oh, I'm kind of torn on this one. So I had a few, but I think I'm going to go Austin Rock from 17.
It's a great pick.
I mean, the ending was
I'm a little hazy. Which one was that?
That's one where Austin turns.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good end.
So, in this, I think it was their best of their 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by far.
The build to this one is phenomenal. It still has the best video package ever for a WWE.
That was the second one, right?
Yeah, that was My Way.
The third one is when Austin stepped away after that, right?
Yeah, it was quietly his retirement match until last year.
But like I said, the build for this, Austin, I will do whatever it takes to get I need this. I will do whatever it takes. And turning around and doing that, whether it worked or not with him going heel, I mean, it didn't that night because a Texas crowd was just so behind him.
Yeah.
But just everything he did, I mean, like I said, that build to that with, Deborah having to be in the Rock's corner, and just you watching that. I guess I'll go back every once in a while and watch this match, but that watching that video package of the My Way is just still to this day the best one that I think they've ever done.
Cool. Yeah, that those two. I mean, I don't think there's too many scenarios where two guys can main event a Mania together multiple times and keep it fresh. But those two are so good at everything that they were able to do that.
And I think you really have to. You mentioned with the video package and the bill, but like you really have to put yourself in the mindset of this was the highest point of the highest point of the highest company ever. That it literally it was the celebration of the end of the Attitude Era, because literally they people say how come they can't get back to it. It was so in the popular media, and it was the two biggest people in the world in wrestling actually coming together. It's incredible to even think about happening.
But is that because that was the same week that they bought out WCW, right?
It was the week before, 6 days before is when they announced it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just like I said, that trilogy of matches you've never, I don't know, as far as I know, you've never seen that before. I mean, I guess you had Undertaker Triple H.
Undertaker Triple H has been 3. There've been a couple other that have been 2 at Mania.
And those two same thing. They managed to keep it fresh all 3 times. I mean, they threw Shawn into the
Shawn in a cell to keep the last one fresh, but yeah.
Right on. Well, let's go with Bennett. You got 2 here.
Yeah, I think I know which way I want to go with 1. I'm trying to pick the second. So let's take the one I know first. Okay. This again, you want to talk about, I'm happy it fell to me. I talked before with my first pick of one of just the best, everything from story to story in the match to everything else build. This I think is the best. You don't have to know anything about it. It's just sit down and watch these two go nuts for 30 minutes, I will take The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania 25. One that people still, and again, I don't even like Dave Meltzer, but I brought him up twice now. The one that people still tweet at him, how come this wasn't 5 stars? It just, again, it's the it's the one that, like, you know, you want to talk about like, Steamboat Savage made 1,000 wrestling fans. Undertaker HBK made 1,000 smarks. Like 1,000 people went like, oh, work rate is sick. Let's do this. And you have arguably two of the, I don't put them on my Mount Rushmore, but I think there's it's hard to not put them both, at least one of them on the Mount Rushmore for WWF, especially 90s, but really all time. And the two of them at their age doing the most they could have done, literally ruining a Triple H main event, which more power to you for doing that. But just a match that, it's another one you can pop in today and it still impresses in the modern era, which is so crazy.
Steve gave you the rub. So
listen, like I said, I was assuming that this would be the first round was going to be Austin, Brett, Steamboat Savage in this match. That was the way I thought the first round was going to go. So I felt very happy to get this, but I didn't have
any Undertaker matches on my list. And I don't know why.
This was the one that
I had 2, and I'm not going to pick the other one. You guys can have it, so I'm not going to touch it.
This was the one that I had, and again, like you said, man, it was like the story, the build for both of them. Honestly, I like the build to the second one a little bit.
Yeah, there was a lot more story that went into this.
Which one was the one where he almost face plant, or he did face plant running over the top rope?
That I believe was the first one. Okay. It was the second with Snuka, where Snuka got it.
He was supposed to catch him, yeah.
Kyle Tucker just hit a home run that drove in Jose Abreu 3-2, by the way. Yeah, I believe it was the second one, but the build to the second one, which had to accommodate the first one, was incredible. But in terms of a match and in terms of just here's everything that people love about professional wrestling in a 25-minute package. Watch it anytime. It's one of like the 3 matches I think you can show people, be like, this is why I watch this. And it's just untouchable because of that.
Yeah. I wasn't, and like Shane's talking trash because I didn't have any on my list. And like I said, I don't know why I didn't, but at the same, like, I respect him. I respect that he evolved so much, especially towards the end where he became more of a mat guy, which was just kind of weird because usually it's the opposite way. But
that like 6 or 7 year period where he was still semi-active during the year and then would put on just the banger of bangers at Mania.
Right.
Yeah. I had a couple of those.
A lot of submission stuff, which was weird for him because for years he was the throat chop and choke guy in the corner, like for so many years.
Yeah. And then see, I almost want to say I want to do this one just because I know it's on both of your lists. But I don't know if I can give it the oomph it deserves. So I'm not going to take it. I will take TLC 2 from WrestleMania 17, Hardys versus Edge and Christian versus Dudley's. Technically the third of a trilogy, but holy shit, man. Like, again, you want to just like, fuck the story. And there's a year's worth of story built in. Fuck the story. This shit's awesome. Yeah, like, they're flying off of everything. Like, enough said.
I watched that the other night for the first time in a long time. And I remembered like some of the spots, but like, obviously everybody remembers the Edge, Jeff Hardy spear when Jeff's hanging from the belts.
Yeah.
But the one that I think is the Bubba and Matt Hardy one off the ladder through the 4 tables on the outside when Rhino shoved it over.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, those guys killed themselves in those matches.
Yeah. Hardy's still doing it.
I I
Well,
legitimately
was
have trouble
something.
I legitimately have trouble watching Matt Hardy wrestle at this
Yeah.
point.
It's very hard. It's very hard.
Watching him walk like hurts me. So I
It's like
can't
watch
even.
it, but when you watch Darby Allin, you think the same thing. No, like
yeah, but
and he's
Darby,
even small, and he's even smaller. So like,
but like Darby, I can be like, okay, like he's doing his best. Like Matt Hardy, I can see walking like this, and this is the only way he can walk.
Yeah,
and it just like it hurts to watch.
Like
like
watching him when he came back like to WWE, like running down to the ring, it's like just slow motion. It's just like it was rough to watch. It's like you remember just from what he's put his body through.
It's I mean before you get into any other stuff, I'll put it this way: Hogan did the leg drop standing and needed 2 hip replacements. Matt did the leg drop from the top rope for 10 years. Like he's in.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how they like I don't know how he has a tailbone.
I was gonna say it's made of sawdust and bubble gum at this point. Like it's gone.
Hey, my wife's watching. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, Brandy.
Hey, Brandy.
Yeah, I see. My problem is I couldn't pick between them, so like that's why I'm like I'm overwhelmed by which one I think is better because I don't think I have a answer on that.
I was listening. I think it was a Busted Open today, and Bully was talking about this one, and just what they did and what they're planning. Go out there, basically talking to each other before and saying we're going to go steal the show.
Yeah,
and
that was always all 3 of those teams. It was always their goal. They wanted to do something to set it apart. And I mean, you mentioned the Hardys not walking very well. I don't know how Edge and Christian can still perform. That's crazy.
Well, they had to go get experimental surgery to both still be active today. Like,
yeah, shit. All right, let's go Shankster.
And I have a couple, but this isn't my favorite match, but I think it's one of the best ones. Is probably the best opening match was Brett and Owen from Time.
Yep, that was way high on my list. I was actually thinking about picking it.
These were the 2 I was picking between on this last one.
Yeah, and I have another one that I like better, but I think it'd be tough not to pick this one. It's just Brett. Obviously, everybody knew at that point what he was, but that showed what Owen was. I don't think they ever gave him a chance to get higher than that, but this showed that Owen could hold his own with Brett.
Yeah,
and almost better in ring. It was just, I don't think it's ever got the shot, but this opening this match and then the close of it when everybody's out there holding Brett up after Owen beat him in the first match and Brett wins the belt at the end, and Owen's just standing there staring at him at the end of the show. It's just perfect storytelling.
And it set up the SummerSlam because that cage match was phenomenal too.
Mm-hmm.
I was at that one.
The moment I always think about with that match is, first of all, there's the very cool top-down camera that they showed like 2 or 3 times, but they had one where Owen like ground his boot into Brett, and you see Brett just stick his finger like, hey, because they're still 2 brothers, and this is just 2 brothers duking it out. And it was just that little story element, but it tells so much more. You talk about the little things and these little things, but that tiny little element was such a big part of the story. And it's whenever I hear that match, it's the first thing I think about.
Yeah. It's, like I said, you started that back at Survivor Series the year before, I think.
Yeah, when Owen was the only one on the team that got eliminated.
Even Bruce survived.
When he kicked Brett's leg out from him and set this all up. But this went on for the next 3 years before they got the Hart Foundation back together from 94 till 97 when they got the Hart Foundation together with Pillman and Bulldog and Owen.
Yeah, I mean he even helped Backlund beat him. Like that was talk about long-term storytelling. I mean,
yeah, and that's what this was. That's what
poor Stu and Helen. I always love the Stu Hart stories that people tell. Like he just like walks up to you, he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And like he's grabbing your face, like twisting your neck. Like like that's the way he says hi. He doesn't shake your hand. He doesn't give you a hug, high five. No, he grabs your neck and starts to
just
stretch.
See how tough you are.
Fucking crazy guy. Okay. I've been sitting here debating the whole way through here. I'm gonna go off the path a little bit. I grew up a very, very, very large Roddy Piper fan. Always loved Roddy Piper's ability to just get at you. You know, like he was just he had it. He had that element that, and he was good in the ring too. He was he wasn't the best, and you didn't ask him to be the best. But this match, I think was probably his best match. It's also one of the only times his entire career where he lost clean. I also see that there's 2 Bret Hart matches, 2 Austin matches, 2 HBK matches. I'm gonna add a 3rd Bret Hart match, and I'm gonna do Piper Bret Hart WrestleMania 8. WrestleMania 8 is, and I'm sure we'll talk about this shortly, is fucking horrible. Just a god awful show. But that was the like the one match that was kind of the saving grace for that whole card, and those two put it together. It made Bret Hart something because he won the Intercontinental title, and just Piper was kind of a prick behind closed doors. He was kind of hard to work with from time to time, but he had his guys. He had the people that he respected. I feel like he was CM Punk before CM Punk was here.
It's a very good analogy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just the fact that he respected Bret enough to say, "Hey, you're going to go over clean," because that's what I was told. Clean, totally clean.
I don't ever remember him getting pinned clean ever, or pinned period.
Hogan got him a couple of times.
Yeah, I'll say Hogan was the exception, not the rule.
He never lost clean to anybody outside of that. Even when he's in Portland and went to NWA, he never really lost clean. He was a baby face in NWA with the dog collar match with Valentine and all that stuff. And yeah, he never lost. So just being able to let him go over and it put Bret, and Bret won the title within a year because he defended it at 9. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
the thing I always think about this one, and you're correct 100%. This was an excellent 9th pick. It's a match that's so good that people talk about Roddy Piper being an all-time IC champion. When he won it a month before from the Mountie who beat Bret Hart for it. But him giving Bret this title, I talked about passing the torch earlier. Him passing the torch to Bret solidified him as an all-time IC champion in what, if you actually analyze it, is a nothing reign. But this match is that good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Piper stepped away after this. Piper,
it was one of his retirements.
He came back to wrestle Goldust. That was
you
know what I mean? Kind of. It was a cinematic match basically, but
But and they still use the finish from this in other matches. Didn't they use this in the Bret Hart Steve Austin Survivor Series match where Austin had him in the
over the top
$1 million dream, and he flips, pushes back and flips over him. So they've used the finish, multiple times.
I feel like Bret invented that finish.
Yeah, just like the figure 4.
Push off the buckle and then
over the top. My favorite, and this isn't this match. I forget which Bret Hart match it is. My favorite Bret Hart story is that he dreamt up. There was a match where the two of them were laying down, and he sat himself up into the sharpshooter. And there was a story of he literally had it in a dream, and woke his wife up and said, "We have to try this right now at 3 a.m. I have to see if this can actually work." And so in their bed, he got he and his wife to lie down and turn himself up and over to get her into a sharpshooter, because he thought of it in the middle of the night and had to try it just to see if it would work.
That's phenomenal. Brandy and I do that all the time. Hey,
thank you, Yumper.
Hey, Brandy, I got a variation of the sleeper hold. You want to practice this 4 o'clock in the morning? Brandy sees me with a sleeper hold on the dog. She's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I did. That's with my kids. I put the sleeper hold on them.
Okay. So before we go to the next two rounds, the one I had a question for you guys. Who is Mr. WrestleMania?
Shawn Michaels.
So obviously, right. Obviously, Shawn is on that level. I think it's because when I got back into it, I mentioned it before, that Taker run from 23 to 29, which was Batista, Edge, Michaels, Triple H, Punk, was just for a guy his age in the shape we know his knees were in, is just the most unbelievable run. And every other match, not every other match, but 90% of the matches he's done, and I'll get to one in a second, I'm sure, were garbage. But that run, and just, again, it was the age I was at and the influence I had, I have to give it to him there. And I don't even care about the streak. It's that run for me.
See, for me, with Michaels, you could go back to, again, I think maybe Brian, I talked about this, was WrestleMania 9. His match with Tatanka to start the show.
Only good match on the entire show.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about that too.
Yeah, you got, I mean, his match against Flair, his two matches against The Undertaker, Kurt Angle.
Mm-hmm. That's on my list. Don't worry.
Even I watched which one did I watch the other night? I think I watched 8. He had a match with Tito Santana that was pretty good.
Him and Vince at 22. Was the best you could get out of a Vince McMahon match.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Savage should be in the conversation as well, because he had the best match at 3. He carried 4, carried 5 with Hogan. He had the best match at 7 with Warrior,
and 8 with Flair.
And then 8 with Flair. So and then 9 for some reason he was announcing for some reason.
And 10, let's not talk about Crush.
Yeah. Oh, it got terrible at 10. But like the one thing I remember hearing was that Savage wanted like a year-long program with Shawn Michaels.
He wanted it was a 2-year-long program where Shawn got over him. He would disappear for like 6 months and come back and take the IC title from him.
Yeah, that would have been so good.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing with him.
They stole that idea and gave it to Perfect, and Perfect didn't want it. So
that was the other thing with Savage in general. And I mentioned him and DDP before, but if Savage likes you, he would do anything for you. And he and DDP, had literally the feud of the year.
Those matches were phenomenal.
And they were written word for word, move for move.
It's amazing how good DDP got in WCW for a while there.
I just always remembered him from like back in the AWA match in the
big ass, like the cigar that was like it looked like a Bob Marley spliff, you know.
Who was Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond?
Bad Company.
Bad Company, thank you.
Off the album Bad Company.
Or the Orient Express, if you will.
Yeah, Kato. Yeah. But you even look at Shawn matches like you just brought the Orient Express. A couple of matches that him and as the Rockers had with the Orient Express were great. It's just
the Orient Express. Even Paul Diamond was good, but Pat Tanaka was a hell of a wrestler too.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now what? I want to do kind of a dump real quick too. Like what do you think just missed the cut? And anybody in the chat, please chime in.
Please go first.
The one that I had a hard time leaving off was Hogan Rock.
Yep.
Yeah, that was my other one I was considering. I actually almost took that in the second round.
That was my third round one between that and Brett. No, but it was like the match itself wasn't like a classic.
It's drama, man.
It was the same kind of.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No,
please.
You can go ahead, please. But
I would say it was the same kind of thing as Austin Rock, where like the match itself didn't really matter. It was everything around it that mattered.
And it was just how they had to take. I mean, you probably had a plan. They probably had a plan one way when you come out there. Hogan's getting that reaction because there's no way that they had planned for Hogan to do his Hulk up during that match.
They had no idea Hogan was going to get that reaction. That crowd was so freaking hot, man. Well, that's Toronto, right?
Yep. And then the next night in Montreal, when he came out in the red and yellow, like a 10-minute.
Yeah, and they put the belt on him a month later.
Yep.
Yeah. That was just like watching that match. It's just like, this is so good. It was just watching that crowd being into every move in a mediocre match, but being into every single part of it.
Yep.
I will say the reason it fell down for me, it was high on my list too. I have a personal vendetta. My dad got 2 tickets to WrestleMania 18, and he took my sister and not me. And so I have the WrestleMania 18 program in my parents' house, and I just, it's always kind of held down for me. The other one that I had, and again, I want to talk about influential, but for a bunch of kids who like didn't really know what hardcore deathmatch was, give me Mick Foley versus Edge from WrestleMania.
I was
22.
on my list as well.
On my list. I had
Fire and thumbtacks and just again,
the Joey Styles. Oh my God!
Just the fact that the guy who killed himself for the fan base got his Mania moment. That was the the cum shot for Mick Foley's.
Yeah, but it just
sorry for the crude analogy.
I was gonna say I don't know if I was gonna call it that, but yeah, I mean, just again, like I now really enjoy. Again, I'm gonna reference modern AEW, but the Texas Death Match between Hangman and Mox a month ago, I still am thinking about the highlights of, and that all goes back to this match for a lot of American fans. Yeah. This is what turned this and the Orton match a year later is what turned a lot of people onto that kind of thing. I'm
pretty sure they wanted to do. I know they asked Foley and Funk this, but no problem, John. I know they asked Foley and Funk, they asked Foley and Funk this, but they didn't give them enough money. They said, "Screw it, we're not doing it." But just a barbed wire match. They talked about that with Foley and Edge as well, but the money they wouldn't. Foley and Funk will do anything for their body, but you got to pay them.
Right, you got to give them the money,
especially
to make it
Funk.
Worth it. I would say Funk, right? Funk, because Funk, if he's doing it, that's his one match for the next 18 months,
right? Right.
But yeah, I always think about, and I brought up Mox. I always think about that program that almost happened but didn't happen. Where they had the plans for Foley versus coming out of FCW Dean Ambrose. It was like the first time they had ever tried Twitter and all that stuff to bring him up. Like it was like 3 months before the Shield debuted or 6 months before the Shield debuted. And then unfortunately Foley's health wouldn't allow it, but just a perfect, and the storyline of it was this kind of thing. It was, you got 1,000 kids to go in the backyard and light themselves on fire and kill themselves. Like how can you
please think of the children?
No, it was like, how can we call you a legend when you caused all these kids to go do these terrible things? And it was such an interesting story, and they couldn't do it, unfortunately. John Moxley ended up okay. He's fine. But I always just
for now,
right until but that's always my thought whenever it's that match, and then everything that kind of grows out of that match.
Okay, so I had a few more matches on my dump list here. I got 2 Kurt Angle matches, Angle Eddie, and Yumper mentioned that as well. Hell of a match. Those guys. That was Mania 20, and then 21 was Angle Shawn Michaels. I watched that today. I haven't watched it in years. I watched it today. That spot where he does the Angle Slam on the freaking the post.
Yeah. I watched that the other night.
You hear that fly, and keep in mind, Shawn Michaels had to step away from the business because of severe back problems. Yeah. It's like, Jesus Christ, why did you need to do that?
And the 2 others I'll add that are just I have 3 actually. I'll add 2 that are the same boat. The 2 feel goods are Brian Orton Batista from WrestleMania 30, and Brian Kofi from 35 for that similar reasons.
Great. I love
just
that match.
The catharsis and the finally and the it's the moment we never thought. And then I'll add my one weird one that I knew if I put on this list I would never win. Goldberg Lesnar from WrestleMania 33. Which was the 4-minute spear, F5.
Yeah, but it was so fast and hit, and they just
so good.
Yeah, they killed each other for 4 minutes.
Right. It was literally finisher, F5 pinfall done, and it was so sick. But that was the other one that I couldn't put that on my list.
I also had Angle Brock on mine, where Brock almost died. That one. Yeah.
The one that I wouldn't even put. I couldn't. No way to put it in the top 3. But for me, that was just fun. Was actually I don't know if you guys even watched it last year. Was Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville.
Yes,
that was so silly.
That was the peak of what they could have done, and
it was not, like I said, it wasn't great, but it was just I like watching that and enjoy. It was just fun.
So this is my wife's pet name for Brock Lesnar.
Yep.
Because
great tattoo.
Because the tattoo. Yeah.
Yeah.
You noticed it right away, Bennett. That's awesome.
I know exactly what it is.
And then I had a couple more. Obviously, Hogan Andre, Hogan Warrior. Both of those were good.
The HBK.
I think that's it actually.
HBK Flair was good.
It's another perfect storytelling.
I'm sorry. I love you.
It should have been his last match.
It should have been. Absolutely.
Yeah, but Sean can't complain about that anymore either. So, considering his Saudi blood money match,
yeah,
I think that was my list covered as well.
And the Flair Undertaker match actually was pretty decent for that. For
18.
Again, the build up for that with Taker, Flair saying he's not going to fight him. But my favorite part of that match is Arn Anderson giving the Undertaker the spine buster.
I will pop anything that Arn Anderson has ever done. I love Arn so much.
That guy is an asshole. I met him at a bar once.
Yeah, but like that doesn't shock me. Like him being an asshole endears him to me even more. Like,
that was a great match.
So I did have two. I had two. I'm in a DM thread with some people for wrestling. And I had a couple of people. I asked them, if you guys have a list to submit. So we've already talked about pretty much everything on their list, but I'd like to show them anyway. We got Shane Spagnola here. So we had Hart Austin, Mania 13, both of the Taker Shawn matches, the triple threat in 20.
I was not bringing up the triple threat in 20.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
I wasn't touching it with your day.
I already mentioned that I love the Dynamite Kid and I love that.
Is that the Shawn Michaels Triple H redacted?
Yes. When Hardcore Holly won the world title.
That was one redacted one. Yeah. And then Baloney. We already talked about all those. Austin.
Yeah, Brad, I like his 1 to 3 personally.
Yeah. Jesus, that's funny. That's really funny. So there's that. And yeah, those were the two I had. So yeah, let's go to the worst match. I'll let you go first, Bennett.
All right. So
what? Actually,
let
me stop you 1 second. Why don't we have Shankster go first? Because he hasn't gotten to go first in any round.
Yeah, let's
do that.
I mean, my gut. The one I thought of first off was Undertaker Giant Gonzalez.
Yep.
Is probably what I'm going to go with. I almost went with, and hopefully neither one of you picked this, I doubt it, but Pat McAfee, Vince McMahon was on my list.
That's pretty bad.
I got to go Taker Giant
terrible.
I got to go Taker and Giant Gonzalez. I mean, I remember watching him in WCW as, with El Gigante.
El Gigante.
Yeah, and I remember, like I said, I think we talked about this in the thread. It was one of those battle bowls where him and Larry Sabisco tagged up, and they ended up losing. But, it was just that match was that outfit. Everything about that was fucking.
Yeah, crazy. Somebody had to have gotten fired for that character. Yeah.
What is it? My favorite thing about him is he played for the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah,
and Ted Turner owned the Hawks and went, "Do you want to be a wrestler?"
I think he'd be a good wrestler. Wrestler.
But the thing I always go to with that match also is, of course, the way you kill an undead zombie.
Chloroform. And it had probably one of the best Undertaker entrances ever too, where he had the fucking buzzard or whatever. The
buzzard on the hearse.
That was cool as shit, but yeah, it's real bad. And then he comes back and oh my lord.
You go next because I have two, and I have one that's like personally the worst and one that's just bad, but I'd rather you go first and try to help me make my decision.
So here's my heel turn. I picked Roddy Piper and told you he was my favorite wrestler. I'm going Piper Mr. T boxing match, WrestleMania
correct.
2.
That's correct.
That is bad.
That's one that's
a show of bad matches. That one does stand out.
It had a 2-year build up. They built that match for 2 years. And Mr. T got his ass kicked legit in that match.
Was it would Piper have Lou Duva in his corner?
Yeah. And then Joe Frazier was in T's and the Haiti Kid.
Yep.
I tell you, I watched WrestleMania 2 and WrestleMania 3 1,000 times, and I watched it again the other night, and I'm like, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. And I worshiped that show as a child, and it's like, no wonder he almost went bankrupt for that show.
I don't know. I remember Bundy Hogan in LA. I don't remember any other matches in LA. I remember the Battle Royal and the Bulldogs from Chicago.
The Bulldogs match and the Battle Royal were like the saving grace for that whole show, in my opinion.
I think was it New York? I remember the Jake the Snake, George Wells.
Yep.
Macho Man, George the Animal Steel, the boxing match, and there was
Orndorff Morocco was in the New York one.
Oh wow!
And then in Chicago they had Corporal Kirshner and Nikolai Volkov in a flag match, and
just the words Corporal Kirshner.
Corporal Kirshner became a legend in Japan as Leatherface,
which is even funnier. But you also had the fabulous Redacted defeating Velvet McIntyre.
Fabulous Redacted. Yeah. And then there was a good tag match in the LA one. It was the Funk Brothers against Tito and the Dog.
Yep. Was that Tori or Jimmy Jack?
No, it was Terry and Hoss.
Not Tori. Hoss. Yeah. Why they would change that guy's name? He's like a 4-time NWA World Champion. They're like, oh, we'll call you Hoss. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, remember old Jimmy Jack Funk.
Jimmy Jack Funk. You wore a mask, right?
Yep.
That shit was so stupid.
Somebody about ripped his eye out though. Like legitimate.
I think it was Ricky Steamboat and Hercules. When Hercules used to have like a really long, he had that weird leather thing, and then he also had like a really long perm. Yeah. Yep. He had the Randy Watson.
The other thing I always remember from that show is the Battle Royal with Fridge, and he was wearing like a singlet, but he was wearing shorts.
Yep.
So it looked like he was wearing a diaper because his shorts started to fall down, and you could see it like their singlet going down his ass crack. But he was wearing shorts, so it just looked confusing.
And Ernie Ladd was on the call for that one with Gorilla Monsoon. And he just kept yelling, "They're going at it tooth for nail, over and over and over again." And he kept calling Dick Butkus Mike Ditka the whole time. It's so fucking ridiculous. I love it.
Oh, dude, that was. Like I said, that's the first. Really remember watching that WrestleMania because I guess that's about the time. But I don't.
Yeah.
It was just as a kid, you watch this, you're like, "Oh, this is great." And now you go back, you're like, "This is shit."
You know what's funny is for as bad as that one is, the first one's probably worse.
Terrible.
Wow.
I believe that was also Bruno's only Mania match? Because he was in that Battle Royal.
Him and his son wrestled. Or no, I'm sorry. His son
wrestled. I don't think he ever did. Yeah.
Which is Tito Santana Executioner opening match.
And the Executioner was?
That wasn't Demolition Axe, was it?
Playboy Buddy Rose.
Yes.
Axe was one of the machines.
Yeah. Which everyone was one of the machines at some point.
Have you ever gone back and watched the machines do promos? It's so fucking racist. They're like, yes, we from Japan, Mitsubishi, Honda. And you're just like, what the fuck?
It was the 80s. And not that that's acceptable, but Mushi, that's why.
He just looks at the camera and I think it's Blackjack Mulligan. He's like, Mushi, Mitsubishi, Honda, Toyota. And you're just like, what the fuck?
Dude, speaking of that, but Mr. Fuji, way underrated.
Absolutely.
Yes, 100%.
Absolutely.
You did not help me, and I wasn't really expecting you to. So I have to pick if I want to go with the one that will get the most votes or the one that I personally have just like.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about them both, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I will take Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole from WrestleMania 27. I believe it's the longest match on the show, which is doubly so the worst thing. I don't have to say anything. It was 27.
27.
You know what the worst thing about this is somebody like Lawler, that's their only WrestleMania moment.
Yeah. But it's that, and that it's also, you have to think of like, this was 27, which was Rock Cena 1, 2. Rock Cena 2, which already had a little bit of negative with it, but was like obviously a big drawing thing. And it's a moment you can be like, this is why I like wrestling. This is great. Like I said, as I said with Undertaker HBK, and you go, here's a really old guy, old fat dude, and a guy who can't wrestle because he's an announcer, and they're gonna wrestle I think it was second longest.
He got a headgear on.
The second longest match, I want to say, behind Triple H, because that's the rule, is that Triple H has got to be the longest match. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, and then obviously Rock Cena 2 was once in a lifetime too.
Or whatever, like twice in a lifetime.
Twice in a lifetime.
And then I'll say this: the other one I had, it's not even like the reason I was thinking of. I had Taker Elegante. This is just like, it's not good, and it's so inexplicably not good, and just it hurts. WrestleMania 2000. TNA versus Head Cheese. And I know what you're saying. Bennett, why is that on the list? I don't even want you to go watch it as to see why. It's just an abomination. It's not good. And you have incredibly green test, which is fine. You have Albert, who's basically the veteran of the match. Well, you have Al Snow, obviously, but Al Snow has to work like this weird face doofus heel idiot. And then you have Steve Blackman, who I love Steve Blackman, ironically, but he just isn't it. And they had Chesty McCheeserton, which is they got a little person to wear a block of cheese, and then they beat the crap out of him after the match. And it's just the worst. And it's not like, again, like Lawler Cole, you can be like, this is obviously terrible. Like you could, from jump, you knew that was going to be terrible.
I'm going to watch that tonight because I don't even remember that shit.
It's not even memorably bad. You only remember it if you go, what the fuck am I watching? What is this? It's so bad. But I will also shout out Yump, who's 100% right. The Rock's last match in history being a 7-second squash of Eric Rowan, which I believe might also be Eric Rowan's only single match in WrestleMania history, it just sucks, man. It's not fun.
This one, I know we brought up other, but one that I think I love, but it's bad I brought it up earlier, was WrestleMania 3 was Hillbilly Jim, Little Beaver, and maybe the Haiti Kid against Bundy, Lord Littlebrook, and Little Tokyo. And during the match, Little Beaver kept coming in and smacking Bundy with his little moccasin, and then
he kept hitting him in the boiler, as Bob Uecker would call it.
And Jesse, during the whole match, they said he hopes Bundy puts the kibosh on one of them, and then eventually Bundy catches Little Beaver and slams him and drops the elbow on him, and the other, Little Brook and Tokyo turn on Bundy at that point, like, what's he doing? But it's so bad, but it's
what's so funny about that? Those three, Little Brook, Haiti, Lord Littlebrook, what are the other ones? Little Tokyo, and then Little Beaver. Beaver. Haiti was just the guy that Mr. T knew. Those other three are like the Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Andre the Giant of midget wrestling. That's the funny. I'm sorry, little people wrestling. Literally, like if you look it up, those three are like legends.
More so than Max Mini. That Yumper's right, man.
Max Mini's a different story. Max Mini's a different level.
Dude. Just the fact that he's called Little Beaver is the best thing.
I remember the story of
your brother
Bundy
like
talking about it.
Steve Jones was bad too. 9
There's
seconds.
a story of Bundy going like, they actually missed their spot. So if you go back and watch it, he like looks around like, I'm gonna splash this one now. And he looks around because they're supposed to come and be like, no, don't do it. And they missed their cue. So he has to like pause and do, I said, now I'm going to splash this one. And then they run and go, no, please don't. But it's really funny just being like, wait a second.
Again, like I said, there's so many, like, and I was watching a lot of these recently, but like 1 through like 12, you could pick out 5 or 6 from almost every show that were just so bad.
And the one other little personal shout out is Tiger Jackson, the original Dink the Clown, who, for the hockey fans out there, his legal name is Claude Giroux, which is so funny. But he also is a famous little person in the terms of wrestling. Also once wrestled as Little Hulkster and the Macho Midget because it was the 80s.
The little midget. I was just getting something up to show you guys. Hang on a second.
Skylo Low, another one. Nice.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I always remember the Max Mini. Oh,
wow.
No,
that's the other thing, and it's the reason why he came back like 10 years later. But Bundy was like 25 at WrestleMania 2. He was like a literal child at Mania 2.
So the funny story behind this. So obviously that's me on the left there with King Kong Bundy. It's 1980. I want to say 87 or 88. He got fired for going on this tour because he got a promotions deal with some type of computer company. And this is taken at the Electric Avenue in at Randhurst Mall, Mount Prospect. And he literally, like, Vince McMahon fired him for doing this promotional tour.
Was this before or after the movie Moving that he was in?
I think it was probably before. Yeah, probably before. But I literally like went on my Facebook and grabbed that picture while we were talking.
Awesome.
Why is this too small now? There we go. Okay. So now real quick, we'll do one more round of the worst overall show. I'm going to have Wikipedia up here so I can have the match listing for these shows. But did you want to go first, Bennett?
Sure, I'll take it. This is one that it probably just by the thought of the main event, it's probably not thought of as the worst, but it's rough, man. WrestleMania 15, and I'll say even the main event, which was Austin Rock for the first time for the world title, there was like something wrong up and down the card. Austin forgot to pack his vest when he flew out for the show, so he came out in just a t-shirt. I have a couple of those for it. You have Butterbean versus Bart Gunn, which like is really funny in retrospect. Like it was also literally they like buried this guy for doing the thing he was told to do, and he got the shit kicked out of him by Butterbean, which is funny. And the other one I always go to is D'Lo and Test won a battle royal to become the number 1 contenders for the tag titles, which is the most 1998 sentence I've ever heard. Is D'Lo and Test win something?
And then just fed them to Owen and Jarrett.
Right, and then that was it for them. They never tagged again.
Well, and what you're gonna put? You got Undertaker. You're gonna put him in a match with Big Boss Man
and have him literally hang a man in the ring with arguably the worst Hell in a Cell match in the history of wrestling, and you had him hang a man. And then you also I believe you get into they switched the IC and hardcore title stories because what was it? Billy Gunn like got real, like started talking in public about like I'm gonna win the IC title at Mania. It's gonna be so sick. And so they switched him and Road Dogg. So he lost the hardcore title and Road Dogg defended the IC title. It's just a lot of like, it was like the best and worst of the Attitude Era kind of thing, but it's supposed to be WrestleMania and it just wasn't. It just wasn't what it thought would be, which is funny. Outside of WrestleMania 17, which is, I don't think you can have a strong argument that it's not the greatest WrestleMania of all time. And if you want to, I totally fine, but I just won't agree with you there. outside of that, the Attitude Era had like some pretty shit manias. Like 14, I apologize if I'm taking one of yours, so stop me if you need me to, but 15 is not a great mania.
They had a bad run on manias from, I mean, like 12 on?
I'd say 12 to 7,
Yeah.
12 to 16.
17 was good,
Yeah.
and then you kind of get after 2000, they got a little bit better.
Yeah, so 17 is great, 18 was good, 19 was great. Yeah,
I think they started to understand like the place an emphasis on putting together that show, because for years they just wanted to cash grab, you know. Once they started doing them in stadiums too, that was the big thing. Like, we're spending all this money on overhead, we really got to put together something, you know.
Like I said, it's been a while since I watched 15, but
yeah, I
forgot about the
the
Triple H heel turn with on
Kane, yeah, all right, yeah, on X-Pac, yeah. It's one that it's just like it feels like it should be so special or just so something, and just there's something wrong on every single match, and it just doesn't line up.
And that was I think that's a way, like you said, but some of that with the way the matches go, and it just gets so like a clusterfuck sometimes. Like, let's get everybody on the show,
right? And that was always their problem too. That was one of the things they always did. That's why they always threw a battle royal together with everything.
Yeah, they're still struggling with that now.
And you do that like, and I can't remember which one. If it was 22, when you had like Booker T Boogeyman for like a 3-minute match. It's like, what's the point? Booker, you just waste Booker T.
It's okay to waste Booker T. I should jump on my Facebook and get a picture of me and Booker T together, because I have that. Not gonna, but you know. All right, what do you got, Shankster, for yours?
I gotta go 9. There's a lot between 1. My brother asked me this the other day. He's like, "What are you gonna pick for worst?" I said 2 through 12, 2 through 13. But 9 is just overall bad. It was between 9 and hopefully I'm not taking it. It was between 9 and 4 were my 2 choices.
See, I liked 4.
I was gonna say I knew Brian liked 4.
I just, going back and watching it, it was just like, I mean, it was a 4-hour show, but everything was so short on 4. But for 9, the first 2 matches, take away the Tito Papashango, because I don't think that was on the show. I mean, it was, I think, the dark match. But the Steiners Head Shrinkers was good. Tatanka, Shawn Michaels was good, and then it went to hell. I mean, the Doink Crush, Razor Ramon and Bob Backlund. Why?
Yeah, that was a squash too.
Yeah, I mean, and then Hogan and Brutus the fucking Barber against Money Inc. Taker, Giant Gonzalez, Lex Luger, Mr. Perfect. I mean, it should have been better. And then Hogan beating goes in a. I don't remember where, but the funny thing with Perfect Luger was I used to hear, I think it was something to wrestle with, was that he used to, Mr. Perfect, when he wrestled Luger as a narcissist, he would pull one little like tassel or whatever he had on his trunks off every match. He would just pull one at a time off of him just to fuck with him.
My lights just flickered on and off, just a heads up. So,
but that was just a shit show. After the first 2 matches, I mean, if you don't count the Tito Santana match, but the Tatanka Shawn Michaels was good, and the Steiner's Head Shrinkers was good, and then it just went.
Yeah, the Steiner Head Shrinker match wasn't bad either.
That finish, I remember he caught him with the belly to belly, reverse the
killed him, man. Yeah,
unbelievable. So far ahead of their time.
They were way too stiff for some of these guys, though. But that would have been my pick too, Shankster. So good job with that.
And obviously, we talked about Giant Gonzalez and Undertaker.
Okay, so I'm gonna go. Here's mine. I'm going WrestleMania 9, not 9. I'm sorry, 7. Basically the show that happened because they wanted to not have Ultimate Warrior in the main event anymore. And then obviously he put together the best match on the card, or the only actual serviceable match on the card. Everything else was terrible. You had the
Bulldog Warlord best match.
Yeah, I mean,
it's so funny seeing Tenryu and Katao in this match against Demolition, which is like
And it was
amazing,
right? But it wasn't a good match because Smash and Crush were terrible together.
Right then, they were right to say it's one of them at that point was like falling
Axe
apart.
was dead. Axe was pretty much dead at that point. Yeah, he was old. He was really old.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole I mean, when you have to think that the blindfold match between Jake Roberts and Rick Martel is one of the highlights of the
I was just going to say
that's such a good match. Oh man,
that match is not as bad as some of these other ones on this show.
But I love that match.
I mean, Slaughter should have never. I mean, Slaughter winning the title's fine, but Slaughter should have never been a main event.
Well.
On a Mania, and then obviously this show actually had to be moved because of
or
because they
didn't allegedly had to be moved. They didn't sell, and then they couldn't sell any tickets.
Yeah, so for people who don't understand, this was supposed to be at the LA Coliseum, right? And then they moved it to
move it down the street to the
Forum, yeah, because
but if you had
they said it was because they couldn't secure the building because Sergeant Slaughter, who was a Iraq sympathizer, and then Hulk Hogan, which was the the Stars and Stripes guy. There were bomb threats and like they were threatening in their lives.
I wish they fit this crowd into the LA Coliseum, because the secret of the LA Coliseum is if it's not completely full, it looks empty, and you would have like 14,000 people in a 70,000 person open air stadium. Would have looked like shit. It would have been so funny.
That'd have been miserable.
When a WrestleMania, when the best match at a WrestleMania is an Ultimate Warrior match, you know it's a bad fucking card.
Hey, he had the best match at 2 WrestleManias, so
true. His best matches were against Savage and Rick Rude.
Yeah, and his match with Hogan was pretty damn good, I think. I mean,
couldn't even press slam him though, man. He barely got him off.
Well, yeah, I still laugh when they do like the award, like the Warrior whatever awards and shit. It's like that guy was a fucking douchebag.
I'm happy that Tim White is getting it, even if it's posthumously. I'm very happy that because Tim White deserves the world. He went through a lot of shit.
Well, he was Andre's handler too, wasn't he?
Yep, and. He did a lot of shit for that company for 30 years.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's named the Warrior Award, but I'm very happy he's receiving it.
The Tim White depression. I don't know what the word is, but
the web series where he killed himself every
weekend. That is Josh Matthews.
Yes.
At the Friendly Tap.
Right, which whenever you saw them brawling at a bar was the bar that he actually owned.
Yeah.
It was the Friendly Tap.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the APA in there quite a bit.
So yeah, I also had I also considered 1, 2, 3. 13's real bad.
It is.
I had 11.
Take out Brett and Austin, and it's real fucking bad.
I had 11, which Lawrence Taylor between Coke Binges main evented. You also had Taker versus King Kong Bundy, which the only highlight of is they did promo packages with King Kong Bundy as King Kong climbing up the side of it.
Yeah, I remember those.
And you had Lex and Bulldog beat the Blue Brothers, who are Nazis. I don't have an issue saying that. It's true.
Oh, man.
No, that's like you said. WrestleMania 1 was. I mean, what was the highlight?
Real bad.
U.S. Express and Iron Sheik and Volkov. I mean, what was literally what was? I mean, that was absolute dog shit.
Wait, you didn't like Uncle Elmer and Adrian Adonis?
Oh, Jesus, no.
Yeah, there you go. Uncle Elmer had a WrestleMania match before Bruno Sammartino.
Before Bruno, yeah.
I would take the Wendy Richter.
Leilani
Kai match over most of those matches. And that
who was the IC champion? It was
Valentine. JYD Valentine by count out. I have it pulled up here. Go ahead.
The fact that they never put a strap on JYD is ridiculous, man. That guy would get. I remember seeing matches with him and Hogan as a tag team, and he was getting better pops than Hogan. Him and Jake the Snake were the two guys that like the crowd just went freaking nuts for, and.
They're a better talker than Jake.
Right, I think Piper was better, but yeah,
it was a different talk, and that's I think the key.
It was just, yeah.
The other one I had, was WrestleMania 2000, which is why I was bringing up Attitude Era matches at Manias. They had one singles match on the card, and it was
like
yeah, it was the cat fight women's match. I mentioned TNA versus Head Cheese, and the other one I was go to is he had the Hardcore Battle Royal where they fucked up the. Sorry, Tim White, I just talked about how great you were. They fucked up the finish, and Hardcore Holly was pissed off because he won the title at the end and called Michael Cole a little shithead live on the air.
Dude, that guy was a legitimate badass.
He was a nutcase. If you want to read a book where it's just like, oh, you're like actually an insane person, but it's an interesting story. I forget what it's called, but his autobiography is like interesting. His like whole background.
You ever read the I think it was, I don't know which Foley book it was, but when he talks about the penis suplex with Hardcore Holly and Al Snow. You guys
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I actually don't. I'm intrigued.
So at some show, I think it was a house show, but Hardcore Holly picked up Al Snow for a suplex, and when he did it, he took his tights and just moved him over and held him up in the vertical suplex with his dick hanging out.
Right, flopping out. Holly was a dick to everyone, Yump.
Yeah, he really was.
That was his thing. But yeah, it's that Mania overall was just like, and like you had the fatal 4-way main event, which like
man in every corner.
Right. It's a very cool concept. It just didn't fucking work. And I'll still say, I mean, Redacted versus Jericho versus Angle, like that's a match I would think up where they had the two falls for the two titles, but it just didn't work, even with two of the best workers in the world and one of the best up-and-coming workers in the world.
Another one that we, I think, missed on best was HBK and Jericho was another good one.
It's a good one. Yeah.
But the ending of it where he gives them
two guys that can just go with anybody.
Yeah. Right. Who can adapt their style to match anyone else's.
That feud between those two was great when Jericho came back in like 08, maybe 07, 08.
Yep. When There Will Be Blood Jericho.
Yeah, when that like whole thing, when we got HBK's wife involved, and that was another long, like, good storytelling on that.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a couple more on my worst match list. I just noticed. The first Brock Goldberg match.
Yep, that's part of why I didn't have Brock Goldberg as like a top 3 because I fucking love that match.
The crowd's doing the na thing.
Listen, I'll say this again, and like, fuck him because he's an asshole. Like, Brock Lesnar was like casually almost made the Minnesota Vikings. Like, after having not played football for 15 years, he was the one of the last cuts in the preseason.
Are we for worse? Are we going to overlook Big Show and Akibono sumo match?
Does that even count as a match? More like a segment? I don't know. I don't know what the designation is for that. So.
One other I'll put as it's a real low down honorable mention, but I'll give Big Show one prop is the hardcore match from 17 with him, Kane, and Raven, where they almost allegedly cut the power to the whole stadium with the golf carts. But like you had them going through, he threw them through the glass, they went through the wall, they just like all the shit they could think of, they threw into it.
That would have been a fun match to be on, like a fly on the wall while they're planning it out. Yeah. I also had Sid Hogan, obviously. And then just like the clusterfuck of what happened, like Sid tested positive for steroids, so he's on his way out.
Softball season.
Softball season. And then Papa Shango missed his cue, so Sid had to kick out of the leg drop. And then they just sent the Warrior out there to like make everything okay. That was a good one.
How about the Warrior Barry and Triple H and no selling the pedigree?
I love what I love about that is you see where the company had him on the Two Opinions where they did the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior and Triple H like it was so fucking rude, how dare he? And then he re-signed his rights and he was like, it was an honor to put over the Ultimate. I was like, shut the fuck up.
Wasn't he at that point wasn't Triple H in the doghouse because of the
Yep.
Well, that's why it happened. Like, sit down and shut the fuck up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, because that was 12, right? Was that 12?
Was Sean still there, or was
it was 12, but I believe it was
11 the last time. Yeah, because 13 was 97, so 96. So that would have been.
It might have been before, but he wasn't a notable like person at that point. Still, like that's why, like, again, there are times where you can talk about it, but it was. Oh, I got the worst one as I'm looking at this. How about the Huckster fighting Nacho Man to a no contest on the pre-show with Billionaire Ted as a special guest referee?
That whole thing was just bad.
That technically happened.
The Miller Lite catfight girls.
That's a good. I mean, not a good one, but
the one that I still had on my list that I almost took was WrestleMania 28 World Heavyweight Championship match between two guys that are very good in the ring. And it lasted 18 seconds.
Sheamus and
Daniel Bryan. Well, I always wondered what the hell was going on. He wasn't hurt, was he? Like, why would they book that?
I'd probably make Sheamus look strong because I was Triple H's boy.
So silly.
Yeah. The other one I had for worst, and I'm trying to find which Mania it was, but Brett versus Vince, where if Brett took a bump, the company would have gotten sued to Kingdom Come. So they had to have like all 14 members of the Hart family come out, and Brett couldn't take a step back. This was also in the time where he won the US title off The Miz without being able to take a bump. But just like it's a very good concept.
He wasn't allowed to take bumps because of his insurance policy, right? Because
it was that, and I think it was just his general health. Like it was only like 5-10 years after like a serious stroke and motorcycle accident.
Yeah, fucking Goldberg, man.
That guy, yeah. Brett still hates me. See, I don't know if that's a bit.
Brett hates everybody, though. Come on.
No, it's a bit at this point. I refuse to believe it's anything but a bit.
Brett hates everybody, though. Come on.
I will always go ahead.
He was bitching the other day about we went to an NXT show and he was so offended that they were slapping their leg. Like, shut the fuck up, man. Like,
I'll always go back to this. Like, Brett has had, and he's in a much better, even if he complained last week, he's in a much better place now. But like, Brett had a shit 4 or 5 years where like I can understand him being real fucking grumpy. Yeah. You had the screw job, Owen getting his head kicked off, a motorcycle accident, a stroke in like a 2.5 year, 3 or 4 year period.
Yeah.
I can really understand why he was so fucking pissed off for as long as he was, because that fucks you up. One of those will ruin your life.
Jumper, I'm not saying you shouldn't be mad at Goldberg. Goldberg cost him like $25 million or whatever, but he seems to be like yelling at clouds at this point, you know?
Right. It's literally I stubbed my toe and that hurt, but not as much as when that piece of shit Goldberg. it's that kind of thing.
It's got to be a bit anymore. It does, but it's so.
You never know with him.
No, and there, like I said, man, you go, like I said, over all of this. That agreed, Jumper. He's bitter. But WrestleMania, I mean, has had more bad than good matches over. I mean, by far, I believe.
Yeah,
and it's just, and like I said, I was diehard from because we had years ago when like I had a friend of my parents who had like that huge satellite dish in his backyard and could pick it all every pay-per-view up.
Yep.
So I'd go over there and watch every single one. When WrestleMania started at 3 p.m. But it was just
it still does now. It's 2 days.
Yeah. And you watch it and it's just, and like I think it's gotten better lately. I think some of the wrestling is better, but like you look at those, something, it was like, let's get everybody on the card. Everybody's going to have 5-minute matches. We're going to have 2 matches that are over 10 minutes, but the rest of it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's what it is now. So you now, Bennett, you said you're not going to watch. Are you going to watch, John?
I am. That's my plan too. So, and like it's kind of nice. Like I got 2 girls, so trying to get them into wrestling is kind of hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've taken them to 2 live events. They obviously enjoy their big, Bianca Belair fans. So it's
cool.
But they
respect that.
She's a good one to follow. She's a good one for your little ones to look up to, for sure.
I remember taking them to the first time because like one of their friends who my youngest little boy crazy, but so we took one of her friends who's big wrestling fan, little boy, and when we went last year to it, she's like, "This is so much better than on TV." When we went to the live, I'm like, "Okay," because we went to Moline, which is right by Davenport, where so Seth Rollins gets the Heroes Welcome, because that's pretty much hometown. And then we took him back again in February. And she's yet to see Bianca at either show. We've had Rhea, we've had oh god, I don't remember who else we had, but they asked me about, like, my youngest asked me about is WrestleMania this weekend. She's like, "Can you record it?" And I'm like, "Well, it'll be on Peacock. You can watch it." So she's like, "Okay, good." So they're starting to get into it a little bit, and it's cool. So it's fun. It's like that. I'm glad that even if they don't like enjoy it a ton, they'll humor their dad and go with him to the shows, and they'll watch Monday Night Raw and they get excited. They'll get excited when like when Bianca comes on, or if they do like Charlotte and some of the other ones, but they know some of the guys. They'll kind of but it's the women that they like. So I'm glad that they at least enjoy some of it.
And that's a good thing about women's wrestling has evolved over the last few years. It's growing the business outwards to a new batch of people, a new demographic. So it's kind of cool.
The other thing I'll say, and it's going off of what you said, and since I've been in DC, I've been able to go more and more, and unfortunately now it'll be less because a couple of the spots had to close down. But if you have a chance to go to a local indie, I really can't. If you're either of you, or if you're listening, like it's an experience you can't explain otherwise. I can now say there was a 6-person tag that I saw like a month ago. That's the best match I've ever seen live. And it wasn't particularly spectacular, but the crowd was so into it and it was so much fun. It's just, there's an energy that just you don't get. And it's so much more fun in person. So if you have a chance for a WWE show is great.
Chicago's great for indies.
Yeah, man. I was going to say for you guys, it's perfect.
Yeah.
DC, there was like a whole bunch of issues with the commission. And so basically the only place that's still doing it is like 6 blocks outside the city because Maryland is easier to do. But like, if you have a chance, it's such a good time, and I highly recommend it.
It is, and then sometimes you'll go to like those indies that are just fucking garbage, but you still have so much fun because it's so bad that it's good.
I'm trying to think of this one that, like I said, when I saw Seth Rollins, or I guess he was Tyler Black at that point.
Yeah,
and it was out of Chicago, but it was like it had
AIW.
Like the one guy who was like, I remember, and I don't know if you guys remember the name, was Joey Eastman. And he had a thing called Joey Eastman Worldwide, was what his little gimmick was. But he was kind of like the big talker, but they had a battle royal, and I'm looking
through. I'm seeing what I can find for you.
MCW?
It wasn't MC. This has been probably probably like 2005, 2006.
Yeah, I'm looking at when that's Sidney Bacabella. Oh, I love Sidney Bacabella. He's a great
ICW
manager.
Shankster, was it ICW?
I'm texting a buddy who went with me real quick.
There used to be one in Joliet.
AAW.
What was it?
That was in Illinois. AAW.
That I think is what it was.
Yeah, he was. Those were in. There was one in Marionette Park. There was one in Berwyn.
Yeah, AAW does a lot of stuff in Berwyn, and I think they do stuff at Cicero Stadium too.
But like I said, I remember the only one I remember was like, and I say at the time I wasn't big like indie guy at that time, but the buddy of mine was like, Tyler Black. I talked about with Seth Rollins, but like I said, being from Davenport, I'm like an hour east of there, so that was him being there was kind of, and then just seeing him come to WWE at that time was like, okay, I remember watching this guy wrestle in front of 50 people, but yeah, it was AAW.
I love looking at these like random shows, like Juice Robinson and Kyle O'Reilly were in a tag team in one of these matches. Silas Young fought Raven. So many like wild matches. Samurai del Sol, Kalisto, and Shima Zion were in a tag team. Like so much cool stuff on these random cards.
We started going to Warrior. We went to a couple of matches.
I've heard really good things about it.
The only problem is they hire some pretty fucked up people. Like they hire like Tessa Blanchard a lot and like stuff. And it's like, yeah.
One that's, and I've not been. I've had a couple friends who've went, but I think it's out of LaSalle, Peru. Dreamwave, I think is one that they get quite a few guys to come in for it. I know that Johnny Nitro, John Hennigan or whatever, Johnny Nitro.
Well, that guy makes the rounds, man.
Yeah, he was in there, but they've had DDP down there. They've had some big names down there, and I've heard that's pretty good. We do have a local one here that does some stuff, in the area.
Yeah.
So it's just timing wise. I know. Yeah. But it's like, just to go check it out and support local stuff is fun.
Yeah, and you learn about people like years before. So like you were talking about, you saw Seth Rollins. I mean, again, I'll go to it's AEW. Like I watched Wheeler Yuta in front of 40 people 2 years ago, and I was like, this guy's the best. I love this guy. And now he's, in a main event heel group, being the fourth wheel, but being a guy in it. And it's so cool. You see guys grow and evolve. I saw Willow Nightingale on that show too. She's awesome. I love Willow Nightingale. Yeah. So you see people years before.
We used to go to this one in Elk Grove Village. They used to have shows at like an old abandoned steel plant. And I saw Colt Cabana when he was like, I was like 18 or 19, so he was probably about that age, maybe a couple of years older than me. So, and I don't even remember until years later that, like, hey, I saw Colt Cabana at the show.
Right, literally.
We used to go to a show called Blitz in Joliet, and yeah, we had seen Ali was there. Who was the guy that was managing Bobby Lashley? The little guy that's amazing in the ring.
Leo Rush.
Yeah, Leo Rush used to wrestle there.
In New Japan now.
And they used to always bring in like all these old guys. Like we saw like Buff Bagwell wrestle once. The guy smelled like he was hot boxing fucking Cools in his car for 18 hours before the show. The one thing about Leo Rush that I remember is my favorite thing with him was when Elias, I don't know if you guys already watched this, but he's like Elias, like, hello, police. He goes, this is Elias. He goes, yeah, Bobby Lashley's kidnapped this kid. He's like, son, how old are you? He goes, he can't be more than 10, but just going on and on. It was like the funniest thing they'd done in a while, talking about how he did look like a little, especially next to Lashley, look like a little kid. Yeah, but yeah, like you said, it's just fun to catch these guys before they get big. So we went to an indie in like DeKalb like a year ago or 8 months ago or something. My wife just reminded me. So they had these like ring girls, and they called them the Beauties. And if you paid $10, you got to take a picture with the Beauties. And all it was 16-year-old girls in their like prom dresses, and like all these like creepy hillbillies from like the middle of nowhere, like paying $10 to take pictures with underage girls. You're just like, what the fuck is going on here? But that's wrestling culture. Like, it's weird. You know what I mean? Like,
there's always an air of like,
right. There's like little creep mixed in always. Yeah.
It's like, we talk about my dad always taking us to those, like the live shows and stuff that I remember going to see. It was one of the last ones he probably took me to was, Hogan Flair was the main event, I think. And, I got me and a buddy. He took me and a friend, and we walked away. There's some lady with, cigarettes rolled up in her sleeve. Like just elbows him. It just goes, let me see your program. So he hands it to her. She looks through it, rips out the card they used to give you. She rips out the fucking card out of it and gives the program back to him. Like, this is like when you can still smoke, so she got like her
give me the program.
Hey, what's going on with this card?
Let me see the program.
So I was that the one thing I remember from my first live show when I saw Hogan and Kamala was the guy sitting next to me. It was me and my dad, and we had really good seats. And there was a drunk guy like screaming at Chet Kopic. He just kept calling him Penguin all night. Hey, Penguin, shut the fuck up! And like Chet Kopic is getting out of the ring, and this guy's screaming, yelling. He threw a bottle at him, and Chet went nuts, and like tried to jump in the crowd after him. But yeah, like that was like people watching at wrestling shows, especially in the 80s and the 90s, just like hillbilly hell sometimes.
You guys go to the Rosemont,
to
watch shows. Just the smoke filled, Rosemont Horizon. I only went there.
It used to stink in that place, man.
Yeah, I only went a couple times, like when I was a kid. I usually went to Rockford or like Moline, Davenport. But when we got older, it was always just anytime there was a Raw or a pay-per-view, anything at the Allstate, we were there.
Yep. Well, all right. We're almost at 2 hours here, so why don't we wrap this up? I'm gonna talk about a couple of things real quick here. First things first. Give me 1 sec here. So anybody that's going to the Sox game on Monday, I want to remind you that along with the Chicago Sports Bums, the Sadistic Penguin Studios are doing a tailgate party in Lot B. Everybody that wants to come, just come on by. If you want to let us know before you come out, that's great too. We like to keep tabs on the numbers, but we're gonna have some whiskey, we're gonna have some beer, we're gonna have some food. Got some swag. Gonna be a good time. Monday's gonna be bonkers, man, with all the people that are coming. Just gonna be an awesome time. So if you're going to the game on Monday, thank God Mike Clevenger's pitching on Sunday. Are you going to the game on Monday? Either you're not coming to town.
I'm not.
You son of a bitch. Well, Bennett, just so you know, anytime you come into town, if you come into town this summer, I do have tickets to every weekend game, and I typically have an extra. So
I appreciate that. And also I'll just say, if you're heading towards the game, maybe take a stop at 524 West 31st Street or 3411 South Halsted. Thank you. That's where
King for that, man. Beautiful.
And then finally, so Yumper's mom is walking in a walk for Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. And we are he's doing a ticket giveaway. So if you want to get involved in that, even if you're going to donate a couple bucks, you can get it into the raffle for this. So you can contact me. I can help you. I can help you through the way, or Yumper and Svo or any of the Penguins. Just talk to the Penguins. But it's a really good cause. And if you have the extra funds, please donate, and you can win some Sox tickets. So that is it for me. We are going to be taking a little bit of a draft break for a couple of weeks. I am going to be coming back next Friday with episode 2 of Pop-Up Sox. So we'll be talking about what happened this week with the Sox. I see they lost tonight. Fucking Kendall Graveman. So next Friday we'll be doing that. And then Sunday this week, the 2nd, come on by my playback channel, which is playback.tv/Magnificent Stan. I'm going to be doing a watch party for the Sox game, which is 1:00 on Sunday, with Brewhand Luke, and we'll have some other people popping in and out as well. So, and we'll be doing that throughout the season. I'll give you guys at least a day or two's notice whenever I'm doing playback. I've been having a lot of fun doing the wrestling as well as the Sox games. So we did some World Baseball Classic as well. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, always stop in, dude. And if you ever want to come on with me too, feel free.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
You too, Shankster. But
appreciate it.
But all right, guys, this is episode 14. We are signing off here. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you, Shankster. Thank you, Bennett, for coming on.
For real. Thank you for having us.
No problem, buddy. Anytime you guys have an idea or want to come on, just ask.
Will do, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.